Welcome to the SENcast. My name is Dale Pickles, Managing Director of B Squared and the host of the SENcast. If you are a new listener, welcome. The aim of this podcast is really simple. We want to reach lots of people and help everyone learn, including me, more about special educational needs and disability. In this episode, we discuss supporting the transition from primary to secondary school for children with SEN. My guest this week was Kirsty Greenwood from T for Transition, so hopefully a specialist in that. And Kirsty is an advocate committed to improving the transition experience for children with special educational needs as they move from primary to secondary education. The SENcast is created and produced by us here at B Squared. I normally mention our assessment software on this podcast, but this time I'm talking about EverSense, our evidence and parental communication system. It feels like social media, so it's extremely easy to understand and use, but it's extremely secure. It's a safe place to capture and share evidence of learning with parents or external professionals. It's a really great way to also capture pupil voice or use as your homeschool diary or reading diary. Visit the B Squared website to find out more about EverSense or click on the meeting link in the show notes to book a meeting with me, and I can take you through what EverSense can do for you. Now, let's get on with that podcast. My guest this week is Kirsty Greenwood from T for Transition. Kirsty is an advocate committed to improving the transition experience for children with special educational needs as they move from primary to secondary education. Kirsty recognised that many children on the SEN register lack an EHCP and therefore they miss out on that tailored support. Kirsty uses her experience to help bridge the gap to ensure that these students receive the assistance they need during this critical period. Welcome to the show, Kirsty.
Thank you for having me.
I'm assuming I've literally just heard a seagull, so I'm assuming you're by the sea.
Correct.
Very nice, very nice. You're by the sea, I've got a cold. So for everyone listening, I'm sorry for my cold. I will try and keep my sniffles and everything to a bare minimum as we go through. One of the things, you schedule things, you get cold, you've got to continue.
Correct. The show must go on.
The show must go on. And when this comes out, my cold will be gone and it'll be fine. So there are lots of transitions that are extremely stressful. As adults, we have moving house, we have changing jobs. There is always lots of uncertainty. And for children, that really big transition is moving from primary to secondary. And lots of children take this in their stride, but not all. Some need support and get support, but for some, that need for support is missed. And that's when it goes a bit wrong.
Yes.
So, and you mentioned earlier that it's that those without the EHCP, and I know lots of schools or parents will try to fight for that EHP for secondary, knowing that struggle is going to come.
Yeah.
But the argument is, well, they're not failing yet, so we don't give them an EHCP yet.
Yes. I think for me, it's what I call the invisible vulnerable. Okay, so these are our children who are on the SEN register for maybe anxiety, social, emotional, mental health, your children that with support and nurture stand a much better chance of having a positive experience of secondary school. And actually, it's not just about first day nerves. Children are completely overwhelmed by crowded corridors, complex timetables, and unfamiliar expectations. And we know that for some of our children, this turns into chronic anxiety, school avoidance, panic attacks. And that's, not even mentioning their self-esteem, which plummets. So for me, it's about supporting and being totally inclusive for every child to have a proper experience of what secondary school is going to be like for them. And that's what I'm fighting in secondary schools.
So lots of schools do transitions. What's a bad way of doing a transition? What's a bad way of supporting? I guess the answer is not doing anything.
Yes, I mean, I think there is a transition offer for most children, but I call them token transition offers. A day here, a day there, an extra hour or so once a week for 3 weeks. And while that is okay and parents are grateful, it's not enough. We're not setting them up for what real life secondary school is going to be. And often I speak to children who come back and say to me, I've had a fantastic transition day. We made a pizza, or we created something in DT. Can't wait to start in September. And I just sit there and think, that's lovely. However, what's missing is what it's actually going to be like. And for me, that needs to be completely changed. And children need at least a week in year 6, going into secondary school and navigating corridors, timetables, meeting people, meeting staff, getting changed for PE, all those things. Sitting on a stool in a science lesson, all these things are so big and such a massive change for primary age children that it's a shock, quite frankly.
I think underestimating yes, it's lovely being in the school. It's knowing where it's going to be, knowing what it's going to look like. But when you're used to being the biggest in the school and you suddenly go to the smallest and everyone's a lot bigger than you, and they can be boisterous, they can be all those sorts of things, and you're suddenly that tiny child, and you don't get that on those taster days when you're just having a look around, you're doing those fun activities. As you said, you kind of need to go, okay, this is what it's like, to prepare you for that September. And even things like the lunches. How do you pay for lunches? How do you do all this? How does that work? What's the order? There's choice. I can choose things.
Yes. Yeah, you can. There's different choices for lunch, and for children that like structure and routine, that can be quite challenging as well. They can bring their own packed lunch in, but this is the alternative. Some of their friends might be going up to the canteen and buying lunch. What will they do? Will they sit and wait? Where can they wait? Lots and lots of questions that we have.
One thing which is really big shock for my daughters going from primary to secondary is, I think at the primary school lunchtime starts about 12:15, 12:30. At the secondary school it's 1:30.
Mm-hmm.
So they were actually eating half their lunch or most of their lunch at the morning break, which seems to be at 10:45. And it was just a really weird, that whole transition of, this is just the way we do it. And it's those little things that I think as a teacher, when you get joining school, this is the way it is. But actually that transition from one school to the next, even as a teacher, those rules change.
Mm-hmm.
But that's you as an adult with all that experience, that understanding.
Yeah.
It was interesting. My daughters, one of their feedback, my eldest was on the taste today, was the graffiti in the toilets and all the extra words she learnt.
Helpful.
So please don't use them. Please don't
Or
use
add
them.
to them. Yeah, it's a sensory overload, isn't it, as well? You've got lots of different sensory seeking children. Classrooms not really set up for children to be able to have a sensory break, movement break, brain break. It's one of the questions I get asked a lot when I'm supporting year 6 is, will my teachers know when I need a little movement break? Am I going to be allowed to go to the toilet when I need to go? And it is the fear of the unknown, and we can't answer every question. But by giving children an actual real life experience of what it's going to be like, we at least give them a chance. And we bring the ebbs and numbers down, and we bring, the stress for SENCOs who are going to be answering, let's be honest, thousands, hundreds of parent emails, phone calls. Something has to change, because at the moment we have an attendance crisis. We have we do have a SEND situation. There are lots of children with different additional needs, but there are things we can do now. We don't need to wait for the fallout.
No.
We absolutely can act now. And someone said to me, "Oh, well, it's staffing," and yeah, you've got the staff. I'm just asking you to rejig things, have a think about what's really important to you as a secondary school. You need to have a sense of belonging from the minute they walk through the door. It's so important.
I think when you're in primary, you have that teacher for an entire year. You've also seen them around, so you kind of get to know them. They might be doing stuff with whatever, but you generally know them. So when you get to teacher, you also talk to the other kids. You know roughly what that's going to be like. So you then, before you even start, you've got an idea what that classroom's going to be like, that teacher's going to be like. You're quite happy. You hit secondary school, you're going to have 5 different teachers today, 5 different classrooms. There is no consistency between those people, not because there should be. There's a each teacher does it their own way. The way an NQT will teach and somebody who's 3 years from retirement teach will be completely different.
Absolutely.
For so many reasons, and they should not be the same because they just won't work the same. But it's, okay, your child's kind of got to learn that, get used to it. How do they advocate for themselves? How much do they do that? How much is on them? Do they know that? All those sorts of things. And having, I suppose, a day, maybe having a day where you do make that thing in DT and make pizza, but then a week later you go for another day or a couple of days where actually there is a proper timetable. That's a nice way of then going, oh, well, I hated that. Okay. What can we do?
Yeah.
Because you then got a lot of time to work out what you can do. But also sometimes it's that shock of walking down that corridor the first time. 6 weeks later, you go do it again. It's like, oh, it's not that bad, is it? Because you've had time to adjust. You've had time to know it's coming and work out how it's going to be, not just, this is it now.
Yeah, and also it gives parents and carers the opportunity to have those discussions over the summer holidays, and really put some support in place if needed. Looking at timetables, you can get lots of timetables, on the internet of what a year 7 timetable might look like. And that's what I've been doing with lots of the children I support. And they all look at it and go, whoa, I'm never going to be able to find my way. And you will find your way, but let's pick it apart. And then go on an exploration, go and find the places, let's make it fun and not frightening. And, I just don't understand why we wouldn't want children to feel comfortable. I don't know why we're waiting for it to go wrong in some ways.
There's so many. It's just, I think we forget as adults how big that change is. And I know that for a lot of children, that unstructured time, it's lunchtime. So I'm going to finish in a different classroom each day, and I'm going to get to that lunch hall, or whatever it is, a cafeteria, or there might be the main cafeteria and also another food place which has smaller snacky food. Which one do I go for? How do I pay? How do I know if I've got the money? And all those sorts of questions, and self-managing that. So if your parents are giving you X amount of money, you can go over in a lot of schools. Just because your friend's having that, can you have that? It's all those sorts of decisions you're suddenly making on your own, not it's A or B or a jack of potato.
Yes.
Here's all the things you ever want, but shouldn't have them probably.
Yeah.
Or you should only have them once a week. But all those sorts of decisions you've suddenly got to start making on your own. And it's a whole other thing. And then where do I sit? Do I sit there the whole lunchtime?
I move? Can I go outside? Is that playground for us? Are those older children going to allow me to sit over there? Yeah, there's lots of navigating to do, lots of, brain work that needs to go on. And something else that I was thinking again is children, lots of children in primary schools are still allowed to go into class when it's their PE day in their PE kit. Okay, that's been a thing since a few years now. And that's great. But secondary school PE and the environment is completely different to primary school.
Yeah.
There are different things you need to wear for different activities. It's often the case that you have to take your PE kit round with you. You are timed to get ready.
So which PE kit?
Yes. You've got teachers saying, come on. And children, we're out of the loop with this. They're not ready for that because they've not had to do that for so long now. And panic sets in. It's a huge, huge issue. And lots of children find changing for PE, difficult anyway, for lots of different reasons. But they're not used to it anymore. And secondary school teachers, there's an hour's lesson. You've got to be in and out within a certain amount of time. So it's even things like that. Include that on the week, transition week, in my opinion. Get changed for PE. Let's see what that's going to look like. How long is it going to take you? All of those things.
Yeah. What are the challenges? What are the difficulties? Is it they're just distracted? They're not actually doing it. They're just having a great time forgetting.
Yes, could be. But yeah, I mean, I'm working on a program, a transition program, and I'm lucky enough to be piloting it in my local primary school. And today is the last of the 6-week sessions. And we've covered things from healthy friendships, what makes a good friend, social media, don't get involved in other people's drama, things like that. And I've got children that are going from a very small primary school to a huge secondary school, and they're going to be around, they've been around 20 children. They're now going to be around potentially 300, and it's all about experiences and, just giving them a little bit of a heads up, bit of self-advocacy, how they learn best, who to ask for help, equipment they're going to need. And it's been fantastic, and every child has stayed after school to attend these sessions. And yeah, I've answered so many questions, and I just really, really hope that, things continue and we can make a change.
So obviously you talked to me in the wider, not just actually the day to day, what's the school day look like. You're talking about the wider things that actually you're probably going to have a phone. May have a phone in year 6, but year 7 is definitely when everyone generally has a phone. And that's when all the silly WhatsApp groups start for that class that year. And I remember my daughter waking up to 400 messages overnight. And generally they're just lots of emojis or people just spamming. And she was like, have I missed something? Wanted to scroll back through 400 messages. You're like, don't waste your time. But it's just all managing all of that pressure, managing that people are still messaging at 10:30 at night, but I'm not involved. I should be. Just all those sorts of things worried my daughter. I remember her going to secondary and worrying about being involved, what I should be. And then someone said something really horrible in that group. And then everyone in that group got in trouble. So then we banned group. Actually, there's so much more, and more than when we were at school.
Oh, so much more. It got, it got dealt with at the school gate, and you went home and you either forgot about it or it might have been mentioned again the next day, but it stopped. It had finished. It seems to just go on and on and on. And yeah, we do have a bigger issue there. However, we can give children some tools to manage that and to, explain about if you put anything on any of the online forums, it's not going to go away. Making good choices about if you're involved in a chat and you don't like the way it's going, come out of it. You can do something about it. Use your words to say, actually, I don't feel comfortable doing this, because, we've got to have some children who want to fit in, want lots and lots and lots of friends. But it is a big issue for schools. And again, I think this whole, not having a mobile phone in school, putting it in the pouch, I think that's great. I think that will help. But it's also when they get home and they're in their own environment.
I think one thing where the pouch doesn't work, we've got someone at work whose son, their school has pouches, but at the same time, the students have apps to keep them organised. So their timetable is on an app.
Yeah.
Their detentions are in an app. For that child to be organised, they use the app, yet the phone is in a pouch and can't be used all day. So I think they're still not getting it right with technology, and that can be a real barrier. And actually, you might have to go back to paper and things like that to help you. But that might be something the parent has to get involved in and do themselves.
Yeah. And particularly for, neurodivergent children. I mean, lots of children, that's their safety. And yes, they know they're not allowed on their phone. And generally speaking, they won't walk around corridors on their phone because they don't do that. They stick to rules and things. However, they do want to know they can text mum, dad, carer throughout the day, because that's what they need to stay, on task, stay sort of knowing mum and dad carers are okay. So therefore, what are we saying? That we have to take that away from them. So that doesn't work either. And if schools, I hear, oh, well, they can come to pastoral and we'll phone parents, but you won't though, or if you do, will it be there and then something will happen, and then the opportunity's gone, and then we start losing trust. Our children start losing trust in the teachers and the pastoral staff and heads of year. So I think they're trying their best, but as you say, there is definitely work to be done. Yeah.
And that's, again, back to transition. We mentioned EHCP at the beginning, and generally if a child is in EHCP, there is a much more rigorous, hopeful transition process of what the child needs. They're coming to us from you. What do we need? What do we do? It's generally guidance written. It should be a more rigorous process. But there are the others who are maybe on the SEN register, who haven't got their EHCP, might not have that transition. And then there's also those who, if we think neurodiverse again, that actually they're not on the SEN register because academically they're fine.
Yes.
It's everything else they're struggling with. And while they're in one classroom, one teacher, they've worked out a way of supporting them, it's fine, I can cope, I'm doing well, that unwinds at secondary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If we plan for SEN, we plan for everyone. Let's be fully inclusive. Everybody is entitled to feel safe, have a sense of belonging. And, we put these children into groups, don't we? Oh, they need enhanced transition. Oh, they need an extra, an hour here or an hour there. They've got an EHCP plan, so they'll get, 2 extra days or whatever. But actually, we're missing lots and lots of children who are very vulnerable, and need to be included. They absolutely need to be included in a week's transition program, because then everybody's needs are taken care of. And secondary schools, they're a bit more aware of who's coming through their door in September, who their cohort are. If you've spent a week as a year 6 child in secondary school with mentors and a couple of subject teachers, they will be remembered, because it's just what happens. And I just think we're just completely missing what needs to happen.
I know lots of schools. So my colleague John, his daughter's doing transition at the moment, and she's going into secondary, done her CATS tests already. We're recording in July. So ability-wise, they're knowing where they are, but actually that's one thing.
Yeah.
But in reality, what everyone in primary school wants and everyone in secondary wants is they want these children to succeed. They're just maybe missing some of those proactive steps to help them succeed. Not realising that actually if we do a few more steps, we do a few more things here, although yes, it is extra work, surely it's going to save a lot more work down the line.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer, okay? And I do understand capacity and staffing and resources and everything like that. But, I still stand with what I say, is that, if you think about it, it can be done. And you are going to save yourselves so much hard work. And parent and carers, let's be honest, we just want our children to be happy, okay? There's a very much an open door policy at primary school. We know that, and that's great. It's very different at secondary school. You very rarely can get hold of anybody. You can email, they may or may not come back that day. It could be later on in the week. And actually, for parent and carers, it's extremely worrying for them too. And I think, you mentioned earlier about parents, applying for an EHCNA, going through the assessment process, because they often think, they'll get the better support. But actually now we have an issue whereby, local authority are overrun with EHCNA requests, and you sort of have to sort of go back to, well, what should the school be doing as ordinary available provision anyway? How can we improve that? Let's just stop a minute and put some other things in practice and process. Yeah, and just better support all round. I mean, I was that parent, okay? I was the parent who has a daughter, you know, yes, on the SEN register, because has high levels of anxiety. Now, her transition, I think she had a couple of extra days, but it wasn't enough. And I kid you not, I must have sent 300 emails to the school. She's now about to go into her last year, about the support needs that I felt that she wasn't getting the support she needed. To cut a long story short, we ended up with EBSA, 40% timetable, reduced timetable, and that's not even mentioning the toll it has on as a family. I'm trying to work full time. It's been a horrendous journey, and I know it can be different, and I know it can be improved, which is why I'm trying to advocate to make that happen. I want other children to go through that.
And in reality, having that extra week, which gives them that bit of a prep and then a big break, the parents can help them, support them, and there can be options. You can then go to school, okay, so she struggled with this, what options are? Rather than them going, I've just got to go in. Just things like that can make a much bigger difference than people realise. And I think, again, if let's use your daughter, let's say she goes into that first lesson, she's struggling, the teacher's understanding, they're supporting, cool, it's going to be all right. Cool. Goes to the next lesson, that next teacher has no idea what's happened in that first lesson.
Yeah.
And your daughter would start again with whatever support she needs, wherever she is, whatever she's struggling with, she's now got to explain it to the next adult. That adult might want to listen, might not want to listen.
Yeah.
Got another 200 children she's got to teach today. And it just goes on. Then there's a third lesson starting. And it's like, there should be better communication in secondary schools. They are very much siloed. And technology has the ability to unsilo things. So actually, there should be, yes, there's going to be an English department, a maths department, and so on. But actually, there should be a year 7 chat, a year 8 chat, where you're communicating across departments. So actually, this child's struggling today, anyone can see that, anyone can pick that up.
Yeah.
Yes, I know you secondary teachers are really busy. There's a lot going on. But ultimately, we want the children in the lesson. We want them not disrupting. We want them learning. We want them engaging. And actually, a few extra things proactively are going to be less work.
Yeah. Yeah. Act now. Let's put a plan in place for, so these things don't happen. So we don't have parents. I was one of those parents frustrated with lack of communication. I've sent the email 4 times. I'm still waiting for a response while I've got a child who's refusing to go in. A child who is academically capable, which was really actually quite heartbreaking, wants to learn, desperate to sort of feel that she has a sense of belonging. And I watched that sort of, confident child become, almost like depressed, extremely emotional. And then you have the whole parent guilt, you have to go in, this is school, and I'd watch her leave the car in the back of my mirror and she would be crying. She'd have tears streaming down her face. And she would be saying in the car, please don't make me go in. Please don't make me go in. And I'd be saying, you've got to go in. This is school. Come on, it'll be okay. And I did that for far too long. And I have to live with that. And yes, we're in a better position now because, we have better lines of communication with the school. But I possibly didn't need to go through that with her. And she didn't need to have that experience. And that's where the sort of drive for me to make improvements for children comes from.
Every year we get the statistics. So we came out and go, oh, look, everything's increased again. Like it did last year, the year before. Isn't it a blip? This isn't like a high birth year rate. There isn't like a high need year. It's a trend that actually, with whatever's changing in the world, with COVID happening and people realise, whatever it is, actually the way secondary schools work aren't working for a number of children. And you might say it's a small minority. Well, that minority is becoming quite a large minority.
It's growing, yeah. And actually, if with statistics, there are like 1.2 million SEN pupils in England without an EHCP. There are probably a few more as of today. And that's a 4.7% rise in just 1 year. So that in itself is a red flag, surely.
It really should be. And a school should be meeting all their children's needs. It shouldn't be a case, this is our offer, you have to fit this. It's like, no, as the population changes, the offer should change. And not just students' needs, it's actually the whole society, this way we've shifted with social media, various other things.
Yeah.
Everything is changing. Secondary schools need to stop and pause and think, what actually should we be doing to make this more effective? They love their stats. They love their league tables and their everything. So it's like, but you're not actually changing properly to change it.
No.
You're getting attendance teams who'll go and tell people they have to go to schools and things like that. And yes, there are some really good attendance teams who are literally almost forgetting the percentage and the number, but actually trying to meet the children's needs. There are others who are literally focusing on, you need to get you in because your attendance is low. That's a helpful thing.
Yeah. But why do you think that's low? What do you think is going on here? You know, as a parent, I just want to go to work. I want to drop my daughter off and go to work and know she's okay, have a great day. And it's not like that. It hasn't been like that for many years.
I-
Um,
I'm not saying I enjoyed school. I enjoyed primary.
mm, mm,
Secondary, I struggled socially, but that's my neurodiversity, so that's fine. But I would say I got what I needed out of secondary. I was able to move on. Yeah, I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't literally. I would not go back there, but it was okay.
mm,
Whereas both my daughters have had a much worse time than me. There are things which they struggle with, and that is not necessarily my parenting. I'd hopefully that
no.
actually my parenting is better than my parents' parenting. I understand and listen and have a relationship with my daughters, but it's the world around them that has changed.
Absolutely.
And that's
Yeah.
having a much bigger impact, I think, than secondary schools realise. And I think when people talk about secondary, they think it is a consistent thing, because secondary have been the same. But secondary isn't like it was when I was at school. It's changed. The
It has
curriculum's
changed.
changed, the
Yeah.
GCSEs have changed, everything about it has changed. It's not the same place it used to be. And it's gone
No.
in one direction, the world's going in another.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're not keeping up. We need dedicated, sustained transition support, which is meaningful, you know, which, you know, and there also needs to be some teacher training in terms of EBSA strategies and, how do we actually communicate with our children? How do they want to be communicated by? Lots and lots of different things. And for me, it was, I just want them to know a bit about my daughter before she goes. Just something, a little bit, how she learns, what triggers her. It just seemed to take 2 or 3 years before the penny dropped. And that's not okay. That's absolutely not okay. Because then we're left picking up the pieces, aren't we, as parents and carers, and then trying to build confidence. Um, it's to be honest, it's horrendous. It really, really is, and it doesn't have to be this way.
No. And you're saying it's horrendous, not as someone who's going through it, but somebody who is watching your child go through it.
Yeah,
So it's not directly impacting you, but you're watching what that's doing to your child. You're watching your child who was probably in year 6, was happy, lovely, bouncy, loving life. Maybe not, but generally my daughters were a lot happier before secondary school.
yeah,
And it
very
wasn't
much so.
the academic side they struggled with.
No, 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 not the academic side. You know, it was everything we've spoke about, and it was a massive shock, and she wasn't prepared. And some of our children skip in happy as Larry, don't they? Yep, great, can't wait to be grown up in year 7. But for the vast majority of our children, that transition needs to be carefully managed, and we just need to give these children more time to adjust. That's what needs to happen, because it's not going away. More and more children aren't attending school because they're anxious, because they're upset, because they don't feel their voice is being heard, because the teachers are inconsistent, because they're terrified of getting in trouble for forgetting a pen.
But only from that one teacher, not the other teacher.
Possibly, yeah. Not knowing who's going to react to what.
And it is, we talked about that consistency of teaching, that every teacher has their own style and their own approach. But every teacher should be consistent on how to deal with you not having your calculator or you not having a pen. And the answer is, did that child do it to be a horrible person? Or were they struggling with something? Were they whatever the reasons? Does having a go at them really help?
No. No, because actually they can't learn if they're terrified. They can't learn if they're worried that they're going to get in trouble for something constantly. And I'm not saying that every secondary school has, such strict rules, but the expectation on our young people to be responsible in year 7 is huge. They go from being in primary school where it's all provided and it doesn't matter if you lose something. Well, there's another one there. It's the shift is huge, and it's just about early prep. It's just about giving them an opportunity to start well. Start well and not come home after week 2 saying, actually, I'm not going back. Absolutely not.
But again, you mentioned about the PE kit, about in primary, lots of schools now, when it's PE, you just come in your PE kit and you go home in your PE kit. So you don't have to remember to take it in.
No.
You don't have to remember to bring it home. You don't have the getting changed into your PE kit. You're getting changed back into your own clothes. You've actually simplified that child. They're having to remember this. As long as they turn up at school, at primary, everything is there.
Mm.
And I think primary schools have made it easier, and I can't blame them. But again, it's another stepping stone which has been removed, helping them get ready for secondary.
Yeah. It's something else that they haven't got to think about.
No, like I kind of get, let's simplify things, which is, becoming a bit of a hindrance. Actually, we've simplified everything at primary so much that actually it's an even bigger step up to secondary than it used to be. I remember I used to get a bus to primary school on my own. Would not let my children do that now.
No.
But that's what happened. And if I had to take my PE kit in, and that's the way it was. I remember with my cycling proficiency, but my parents both worked, so I actually had to cycle to school to learn how to cycle safely in public. And the half time I actually cycled on the road to school. So there are those stepping stones of being organised, being responsible, that actually we're pulling away in primary than expecting
them just to be able to, pick up and carry on. I mean, when you start a job, you have training, don't you? Everybody's trained, and that, depending on the job, that can be anything from a couple of weeks to 6 months sometimes. But we're not training children to be successful in secondary school.
You also have entry requirements for the job.
Yes.
Which kind of say, we need you to do all of this. And I think the entry requirements for working in a secondary school for that child is probably a really long list.
Huge.
And actually, cool, it's a long list. Cool. So when was the opportunity to develop these skills?
Yeah. Yeah, and I want it easier for secondary schools. I think Senkos and pastoral leads, heads of department, they're probably inundated. In fact, I know they are. I speak to lots of secondary school staff. So if anything, let's try and ease the workload for them as well.
It's not rocket science, is it?
Not really. It's not rocket science. I often sit here and think, is it me? What am I asking for? Am I asking for too much here? And actually, no, I'm not. I'm not at all. I'm asking for a week. A week in school.
I think when you are a parent and you kind of arrive in a school, when your child gets that place and you arrive there, you look at that school with fresh eyes. Every year, new challenge, you're looking at it through fresh eyes. They just did this, it would be easier. When you're in that school, what you see the school completely differently. And what you think can change, you think actually quite small. This is the way we do things, this is the way it is, this is the way it has to be. And a lot of the time, it doesn't. And I only know 2 quotes which I really like. This is a Mark Twain one. It's not what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. And it's that thinking we can't change, or this is the way it has to be, where it actually doesn't. There are lots of changes you could make, but it's just different. It's out of your norm. It's out of that you lose a bit of certainty. But actually, how much could secondary schools change to meet the needs?
Yeah.
And what would the downside be? There'd be more children in school.
Yeah. Isn't that what we want?
There'll be more children probably getting the grades they're capable of because you've removed the barriers from them.
Yeah.
I don't know what the downside is, apart from you're doing something you haven't done before as a school.
but be brave and accept that actually I might just be talking sense. And, just do it. Just put it into practice. Get it out there. Get children prepared and ready. Drive these ebbs and numbers down. Let's act now. We need to be proactive.
If secondary school was a marathon, you wouldn't just turn up at the start line with no training. You wouldn't just walk up and go, well, I saw it was in London. I've been to London before. I've worn my trainers. I did a 5K run. You try and do something which replicates what that would be like. So as you said, going into secondary school for a couple of days with a timetable, with a rough idea of what the lessons might look like, to go, actually, this is what it's going to be like.
Mm.
Even just as a child, I know we process lots in our head when we sleep. We actually get understanding from things later on, not necessarily in the moment, for me anyway. So I'll have that experience, I'll go away, and I'll actually go, okay, but I might not understand things in that moment. It helps me prepare. There are so many reasons why you do that training.
Yes.
And then you might sit there and go, you know what? Actually, I've got the wrong trainers. Yeah, might be the right trainers according to him, but actually they're really uncomfortable. Whatever it is, I'm not a runner, so let's just leave that there. But you have that experience. Yeah, you learn from it. You think you're going to have packed lunch because you've had packed lunch at primary school. Suddenly everyone around you is not having packed lunch. Well, I don't want packed lunch anymore because no one else is. But actually, I'm not really sure of my food options. But anything like that, it's like a training for that marathon.
It's huge.
It makes sense.
I've had to spend time finding out or getting a copy of, it's been really tricky, what a menu is at one of our secondary schools. A child is that anxious about what's on offer. They want to know because it's completely out of the norm. There's a menu? What's on it? Panini, toasty, whatever. What, at 10 o'clock? And it's gone so much bigger now. I've had to find a copy of it, go through it, explain how much things are, but you don't have to buy them.
Also, they might say the word pizza.
Yes.
What they actually mean is it could be a pita bread with tomato sauce and cheese on and a bit of pepperoni, or it could be half a baguette chopped in half.
Yeah.
Now that is pizza in a loose term.
Yes.
But if you're expecting a round thing or a shape like a proper pizza from Pizza Hut, and you're ordering something that comes out look like a baguette, that's not a pizza.
No, you're going to be very disappointed.
And some
children might voice that.
But it is.
And then there's another problem.
To some people, that is like, yeah, but you just get used to it. It's like, yeah, that's as an adult. Adult.
Yeah.
When I learned my daughters the idea of a burger. A burger from McDonald's, a burger at home, and a burger at Burger King are three completely different things.
Yes.
They like the McDonald's one, but not the Burger King one. And when I make them at home, they're wrong.
Yeah.
But you like burgers. It's different.
Yeah, I don't like that one.
No, it's not. It's the same. Well, no, because this one's got a floury roll. And it's just like, but it's not the same. Lasagna. Yeah, your lasagna at home. My daughter had lasagna at school. Great, we'll make it at home. What's this? Lasagna? No, it's not.
No, that's not the lasagna I had. Yeah, I don't know. And one other thing I did want to mention is, expectations, behaviour expectations, what you would probably get away with at primary school. It changes, the rules change. There are some very strict teachers out there. They have a different learning style to others. But it's also about, saying to the children in their week of in the life of year 7, that was going to get you a timeout. That's going to get you sent to wherever. That's going to get your name on the board. It might not have done in primary school, but we don't give you 5, 6 chances. We mention it, you say it again, there's a consequence. And that in itself is just huge. Children have to do some work on their skills with calling out, talking, all of those things. But if they know what's coming, then they can work on that.
It's even like tucking a shirt. I remember at my daughter's primary school, someone gets an award and there's that child stands up, his shirt's untucked, and the head teacher's going, "Are you going to tuck that in before you come up here?" Oh, yeah, sorry, miss. And then you watch them tuck it in as they're walking up, looking really sheepish. At secondary school, that would have been a detention.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like,
Just,
so that suddenly, again, no consequences or name on a board, which you think, what happens? Nothing, your name goes on the board, and then not a lot. Okay.
yeah.
I do exactly the same at secondary school, and now get detention. If you forget that detention, it gets to a worse detention. If you
Yeah.
forget that detention, because you're struggling with your organisation,
Yeah.
you end up in
Now
a day of isolation.
Now you're in debt to them by about 3 days, and it just keeps growing. Yeah. I just think we need to do more to prepare them. It's too much of a shock for lots and lots of children.
I still don't understand. Again, with my kids, I remember my parents. I don't know if you had this. You do something wrong. Why? Because I said so. Or because. Yeah, that was the answer. And I think secondary schools are still in that zone. Why are you getting attention? Because. But I don't understand. No, you know what you did wrong. I don't actually.
I don't.
And I think with my kids, it's like, you've done that. It's wrong. Why? Okay, I'll try to explain why. I don't have to give you consequences. I choose to because it's actually, you've got to learn the consequences. But actually helping them work out that, yes, you did that. What else could you have done? Don't know. Okay, cool. You don't know. Right. Here are some other options. Here are some things. Yeah. My daughter, I'm sure most parents have a child who leaves mugs and glasses in their room.
Oh, yes.
You either go the full-on, no mug drinks or food allowed upstairs route, or you just give them an option like, actually, what you just need to do is, as you're walking out in the morning, just look in your room. As you walk downstairs, that's when you grab something. It's taken a while, but you can hear, actually, as they leave the room, just look. That's what it takes. Then you notice it, and then you can do it. Whereas half of them, they just don't notice because their mind's not in there.
No.
But it's just a bit of strategy, bit of support, not just straight punishment.
No.
Fine, give them a detention, but in that detention, do something about the problem.
Yeah.
Because if you give another detention, well, the first one didn't work. Okay, let's do another one. Let's do a third one. Let's do a fourth one. This isn't going to change anything apart from the child just not being listened to, not understanding. Anxiety goes up. Episode starts arriving.
Yeah, they don't know why they reacted the way they did, But by punishing them, we're not actually getting to the root cause, and we need to put some strategies in place. We are still at the point where my children will put a plate, bowl, cup, whatever on the windowsill and then walk down the stairs, which I'm still trying to get my head around.
There's probably some logic in their head.
You've just walked down the stairs, placing the cup, the plate, whatever, on the windowsill. I find that extraordinary. Talk me through what you thought was going to happen.
They were in my right hand, but I needed to use the right hand for the banister, so I just put them down.
Very strange.
Change them to your left hand.
Maybe go back up now and get the plate,
Right. I think with my daughter in year 11, this came in. So they did Sparks Maths.
Yes.
How much do you love Sparks Maths?
Me personally?
Yes. Horrible thing. Sparks Science is somehow better.
Yes.
Sparks Maths, absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
So if you don't do your homework, you get detention. Cool. With Sparks Maths, if you didn't get 100% correct, you got a detention. Cool. Okay, so my daughter's struggling. What can you do? Well, if she comes to an after-school or a lunchtime session, she can learn how. Okay, so because of bad teaching that my daughter doesn't understand, she either has to have detention because she get it right, or she has to choose to go to a lunchtime detention or after-school detention. But it's not called a detention; it's called a support session because she doesn't understand. Surely the understanding should come in the lesson.
Yeah.
There should be opportunities to understand. If you're not quite sure, there should be some. But it's like detention or detention because you don't understand something. Call it voluntary.
When have we punished someone for not understanding something? Crazy.
And it's just, I get not doing your homework get detention.
Yes.
I get that.
Yes.
I really do. However, if you're giving detentions for not doing homework, I would then start questioning why this child isn't doing their homework. Oh, they're a young carer. Yeah,
Yes.
And they're ADHD. They're just disorganised. Whatever. Cool. Okay, let's try some organisational tips. Let's try and help them. Let's suggest they come to this club so they get time to do their homework. Whatever it is, you give them, not just keep giving detention, you give them options, you try things. But detentions for not getting your homework correct, that's bonkers.
Yeah, I don't actually know what to say,
And sometimes the teacher would say to my daughter, it took you 3 hours to do the homework. She was like, yeah. And then we've had a solution. There's an AI where you just take a picture of the question. It tells you the answer and the workings.
Or in my case, there's an older sibling that will answer for you.
Yeah, she was at uni, I think. So I couldn't do that one.
No.
So she looked at the question, I go, I've got no idea. You don't use that in real life. No one will ever use that in real life, but you have to get it right.
Yeah.
And I'm struggling. Take a photo. It gives you the answer. You stick it in. Great, I can move on. Have I learned anything? No.
No.
If there was an opportunity to maybe ask questions which wasn't in detention, might my daughter have learnt it? Yes. But no, it was get it right was the important part, so we'll just use AI. My daughter's not learning anything from that.
No, absolutely not.
And let's not start. We've been talking enough. We're not going to start on uniform.
Oh, no. Now then. Reasonable adjustments. That's what I'll do. I'll just leave it at that.
Reasonable what? Reasonable? Never heard.
No. A couple of words I just band around,
Yes. No. Yes. As in, like, don't forget your PE kit. Which PE kit today? Depends on what PE you've got. What? There's a lot. There's a lot more than people understand for that year 7 child to understand.
Huge. Yeah. And also, let's not forget, we don't know, what's going on at home for a lot of our young people. We might have an idea. Schools might be given information from primary schools, but actually there's lots we don't know. And I think there's a tendency to forget that and to, where's the empathy? Where's the compassion? Let's just stop a minute. Have a think. Let's find out if there's an issue. Find out if there's anything you can do to support this child. And I think there's more children than there should be, but there are a lot of children that do have, sometimes very challenging home lives, chaotic home lives, lots of siblings, not much space to be able to do homework, might not have access to a computer all the time. But it seems to be we've forgotten that.
There's a thing where they talk about like a parent's contract of if your child comes to my school, you've got to do this. Okay, I don't agree with that. What happens now? Oh, they still come here because there's no other choice. Okay. And I think a lot of things I did agree with the school. I did completely. But there are some things like the Sparks Mass and a few other things. I'm just going, no. And I said to my daughter, if you ever get detention for that, you're not going.
No.
You're just not. It makes no sense. And then we tried to talk to the Senko, and I'd say to my daughter, do you want me to pick a fight or not? And she just went, no, it's not worth it.
Yeah, I know. But when your child tells you that, Mum, there's no point sending another email. You've sent 10 and it's still the same. And that's coming from a young teen. What message are we giving there?
You're literally giving them the message that your child doesn't matter. They are not important. And that's not going to be their future. That's just secondary school. And I don't think anyone starts out, but I read on teaching groups, I watch how people chat in secondary schools, and it is very much the pressure of the job kind of makes it that children just don't matter.
Yeah.
And it's hard reading, and I've tried discussing it in groups, and it's not understood how they may be coming across, or actually and I get it, the pressures are from above.
Yes.
The pressures to succeed and get those things, and I don't think anyone's happy in schools in secondary.
No, I think you're quite right. I really do.
And I remember years ago, someone said, oh, I think I'm going to leave teaching. I used to say, try another school. But I think if you're a secondary school and you don't like teaching, I think trying another school would probably just be exactly the same.
Yeah, no. Try a different career, perhaps. Yeah, there is a burnout, there is a shelf life for that role. And I think what's brave is if teachers recognise that, I'm done. I'm not giving what I should and could and want, because I'm at burnout, I've got compassion fatigue, and to be brave and to go, actually, do you know what, I'm done, would be far better for everyone.
That's the thing, I know I've never been a teacher. I've never been experienced. I've watched my wife. My wife's come back into teaching for 2 years. I've watched her not lose the will to live, but it's taken a lot out of her over the last 2 years. And that wasn't in a mainstream school. I know what it's like. I know some of those stress and pressures can be for some parents who are struggling at home. But again, generally they're struggling at home because that child's been failed previously in school. So generally it's a cycle which just gets worse. But I know how hard teachers work. But I also know a lot of that stress is from within inside the school, from people above you and those pressures they put on you. And when you have a good head teacher, when you have that good leader who is protecting you and supporting you and listening and trying to make the best for you as a teacher and best for the children, you've got a great school because everyone will be happy. But I think in secondary schools, all the challenges, they're going to be very few and far between. I did read
and change must come from the top.
I did read there's an academy chain, I think it was Dixon's, they were sort of saying actually, there's some nice things they were saying about actually workload, things like that, protecting their staff, supporting their staff, there's things like that. All the things they're doing, actually, that sounds like an amazing place to be compared to other settings. There are a lot of decisions, again, I mentioned this earlier, there are more decisions you can make than you realise. You've just got to step away out of the way from, but we've always done it this way, actually understanding there is a change.
Yeah.
You could
change the mindset. Change your mindset. Be brave.
Yes.
Stand up and say, actually, we're going to do things differently because we need to, because we've realised what we offer doesn't work, or it needs to be improved, or we need to offer more, or something slightly different. And that takes guts, and
does.
I'm hoping it will happen.
It means you can't follow a rule book set by someone else. You make your own rules, but sometimes you know what's the right thing to do and you go and do it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to wrap it up. We've talked for a while. We've managed to keep the uniform conversation extremely short.
That's another hour's worth of talking.
Yes. And I'm not going to, no. As always, I will be sharing Kirsty's contact details. If you want to find out more about Kirsty does, about her transition programs, things like that she's been trialling, you can get a hold of Kirsty through there. And we'll also, Kirsty's given me some links. So I'll be sharing those in the show notes now, wherever you listen to the podcast or on our website. So thank you for listening to the show. If you haven't subscribed already, click on that subscribe button. And don't forget to follow us on all of the social medias, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, whatever it's called, Bluebird. I think it's Blue Sky. We're on lots of them. And if you're looking for a simple, secure way to capture and share evidence of learning, or a way to capture pupil voice, a way to celebrate and share achievements, or a simple, safe way to communicate with parents, you need to have a look at EverSense. EverSense is our evidence for a learning system that does so much more to boost parental engagement. To find out more about EverSense, visit the B Square website. You can find out about our online training, CPD, read lots of stuff, and find out all about our different bits of software. And you'll find a link to the website and to book a meeting with me. You'll find those links on the show notes as well. So go there and click on those. So thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the SEN Cast. It's goodbye from me, full of cold.
And goodbye from me. Thank you for listening.
Bye, everyone.